Hello and welcome back to the channel. It's been a minute since I gave an update on the Iboga microdosing. The last couple of videos were documenting my experience microdosing Iboga for the last month or so. And it's funny because I didn't give an update because there wasn't really much to update. If you saw the last video, it was like things kind of culminated in this day of like emotional purging. It was like a lot of really heavy stuff moving through, and then after that, it just kind of leveled off, and it was just kind of normal. Like there wasn't really much of a roller coaster anymore, and it's not like I don't feel like I dropped it and let it go and like that's over, but it was just like nothing was really happening. And so I didn't really have much to update because it was just like kind of uneventful. So I finished the cycle. I finished about, I think it was about 3 or 4 weeks of the total alkaloid tincture, and finished it out kind of uneventful. And I was thinking about getting another month's supply. Like I was feeling a little bit disappointed. I felt like it was this feeling like I had done half of the work, but there was still this other half. Like there was still more work to be done that was being left unfinished. And so I was like, it was kind of this uncomfortable feeling. It was like, like what's going on? Like I need, like something feels unresolved. And so I was considering getting doing another month to just like keep it going, maybe even do it, maybe take a stronger dose. And, it's interesting. I was talking about synchronicity in the last video and how there's been this feeling of increased synchronicity, enhanced meaning in the events and the unfoldings in the story of my life, the people that I'm running into, the things that are happening. It feels like there's more depth and richness to it, and as if there's a reason for things happening. Right? It's like this feeling that things are unfolding perfectly as they should in this synchronistic way, these unexpected things happening that kind of defy the laws of probability. And lo and behold, just as I had finished the cycle and I was feeling kind of disappointed, I was feeling like something was unfinished. A good friend of mine reached out to me, and we were actually talking about something completely unrelated. Like I think I messaged him for some unrelated thing, but I think that's sort of part of the synchronicity, is that I was messaging him. I sent him a voice note for something totally unrelated, out of the blue. We haven't talked and over a month. And he gets back to me and he's like, "Oh, by the way, tomorrow we are doing a San Pedro ceremony and you're invited. We, love to have you." And normally I would do it either way. I love it. I wouldn't hold back from doing it, but typically I like to have a little more time to prepare, maybe fast a little bit, set my intentions, meditate on it. But it was a spontaneous invite to the next day doing San Pedro. And so of course I said yes. How can I not? And I feel like, and it all was just kind of unfolding. I didn't really think too much about it at the time, but now in hindsight, I can see that this was the missing piece. This was the unfinished work, that it was like the puzzle piece that fit with the Iboga, and it's as if microdosing Iboga was laying the groundwork for this San Pedro ceremony. It was like we spent the month doing the prep work, getting the soil ready, so that, you know, like maybe like dislodging things a little bit, getting the emotional stuff moving just a little bit, dislodging it a little bit, so that when the San Pedro synchronistically popped up, I was in a place where all of this stuff could kind of blow out. The San Pedro came in and just like, you know, came in like a jackhammer and just busted everything up and blew it out. And it all feels very collaborative. It's like it feels like the medicine, the spirits were, the subconscious was all working together to prepare for this, you know, this jackhammer demolition. And so, you know, I've been a little bit hesitant to talk about this because I feel like it's like what I've learned and these realizations and these messages and this communication with these medicines is very profound and personal and spiritual and precious. And I hesitate to you know, to come on YouTube and talk about it, to blab about it, because I feel like if you're not careful, it can kind of diminish the lesson. It can dilute it. I don't really understand the dynamics of it. Maybe it's something to do with like, if you spread it too widely, if you give it away too freely and talk about it without consideration, you know, if you just talk about it with anybody, then it diminishes the value of the lesson. It's like it's precious, and if you give it out to everybody, it dilutes its value. It's not as precious if anyone can have access to it. So I've always been careful of talking about these kinds of things too freely. And you know, but then I also at the same time, if I didn't share this, you know, then one, that this project that I'm doing, documenting, you know, this channel, making these videos, documenting my experience and sharing what I learn in the world, telling my story. If I didn't share this, then I would be leaving out a important part of the story. I would be leaving out a chapter, and there would be a lot of important information missing from the story. And then it's just like, well, what's the point of telling the story then? What's the point of talking about this stuff if I'm not being authentic and vulnerable and honest and speaking my truth? You know, if I'm hiding this, if I'm not sharing this stuff, then it kind of defeats the purpose of doing this at all. So I think you know, the really what it just comes down to is I think it's just I think it's important to share this, and it's also important to preserve the preciousness, and so I think I'm just trying to make sure that I'm talking about it, that I'm coming from the right place, that I'm not just talking about this to get attention or for some kind of ulterior motive, that I think I just need to maintain that I'm sharing this from a place of, I don't know, heart-centered truth, and with the hope, with the intention that this might be helpful for somebody else who is on a similar path. So we did San Pedro about a week ago. Going into it, it was like, okay, what's my intention? What am I meditating on? What am I, what's the goal here? And a lot of it, going into it, a lot of the intention was basically a continuation of the intention that I've had with Iboga, which is that, there's a couple parts to this, but one is that I feel like I have been carrying some kind of grief for my whole life, as long as I can remember, since childhood. I have no memory of where it came from or what it's really connected to, what it's about, but there's this feeling that I've been carrying this grief and sadness with me as long as I can remember, and it doesn't dominate my experience. It doesn't take over. It doesn't cloud everything, but it's like this thing that's just kind of always hovering around in the background. It kind of doesn't want to let go. It's like no matter what's happening, it always, it kind of permeates things in the form of like, negative thinking, like doubt and self-criticism, or like suffocating optimism, hopelessness. Hopelessness is a good way to describe it. It's like this, you look towards the future and it's like there's all these possibilities, there's these things that you're doing, and then there's this kind of sad, hopeless voice. Oh, it's not going to work out. What's the point? Why bother? I think connected to this, but kind of on its own thread, is what I've sort of described as like this hypercritical voice. And this is kind of complicated. This is sort of complex, but it's basically like I think this is something that it's like a program that I inherited from my dad and the men in my family. And that this isn't to say that anyone's at fault. Nobody's at fault here. My dad's an amazing, wonderful person, wonderful dad. He's incredible. I love him. But I think, as a man in the world, I think there's this programming that it's this programming to make money, acquire resources, provide. obviously. I mean, that, you know, this is like a big thing in like masculinity, you know. But there's this sort of shadow, and so it's great. It's a very useful thing. We need to survive. We need to acquire resources to ensure we make it through the winter. You have to provide for your family. So it's not to say that these are bad qualities, but there's a shadow side. There's this negative quality to all this that has materialized in my life as this voice that is always there, and it's very loud, and it sits there, and it just criticizes everything I do. And it's through this lens of, does it make money? Does the thing that I'm doing make money? How does this make money? Why are you spending time on this? Any ideas that I have to survive these filters. Like okay, the idea could be amazing, it could be brilliant, it could be super creative and artistic, but there's this really loud critical voice that's very business minded, sitting right here, that's like right in the back, constantly like you know. And it's like, this is one of those things where like it's really hard for me to sort of separate myself from the voice. It's so pervasive that that it takes over. It takes over my thinking, and it suffocates the magic and the hopefulness and the creativity out of everything that I do, because it's everything is put through these filters, through this lens of like oh, like, cool idea, but how does it make money? And if it doesn't make money, then why are you spending time doing it? Because maybe it brings joy, maybe it's fun, maybe it would be a beautiful art project, but that doesn't matter. If it doesn't make money, don't waste your time. And if you're wasting your time, you're a fool. You're foolish for wasting your time on something that doesn't make money. Now, this is pervasive. This is like this is kind of, I've been you know, and I've been waking up to this for years. Like this is like a thing that I've been working with and exploring and waking up to and integrating. But it's very it's very deeply, it's a deeply embedded program. And it's not to say that it's useless. It's really intelligent. It's a really smart, clever, savvy entity. It's its own persona. It's its own entity, and it's very smart. It's very clever when it comes to business. It's brilliant, and it's very useful. It's a very useful masculine like voice that's like, when things need to get done, when you know, it's like when something needs to get built, when something needs to get acquired, it's a very powerful ally to have interwoven, you know, threaded throughout my mind. But it's also you know, so it's not something to be completely discarded. It's not something that I just, it's like, the goal isn't to just throw it away and move on. I don't think you can do that anyways. It's like, these things are, you can't throw anything away. It's like if it's in you, it's in you. Like it's like like a memory. It's like, if something happens, it's imprinted in your memory. And that's part of the story forever. You can't erase memory. It's there. You can forget about it. You can hide from it, but that imprint is never going to go away. And so it's futile to try to throw it away, to try to discard it. That's a lost cause. And so the thing to do, you know, is to integrate, integrate the shadow. It's like you bring it in and you let it sit at the table with all the other entities, with all the other voices and personas that are in you. And so it has a lot of value. It's a smart, clever, creative ally, but it also has these negative qualities that are like very fear based. It's a voice that's very survivalist. It wants to ensure survival. It wants to ensure that things are going to work out, that this plan, this project, this travel, whatever it is, that like whatever it is that I am doing or that I set out to do, it wants to mitigate risk. It's there for my protection. It's actually there out of love. It loves me. It wants to protect me. It wants to continue my survival, and that's its function. It's ruthless in its execution. So I have a feeling that this goes really deep. I think this is like really primal stuff of like hunter-gatherer survival DNA kind of mentality, that it's like it's managing risk and ensuring survival. But I think, it's like it goes too far. It's like it was sort of embedded in me at some point when it was useful, but now it's not as useful anymore. It's not something. It's something that I want to keep it around. I want to keep it back there as an advisor, or put it on the board of directors so I can consult with it. But I don't want it invading every thought. And it has this way of just kind of suffocating ideas and suffocating the magic out of things. It criticizes, it puts things through the lenses of science and data until it's just like this shriveled up, that the idea or whatever it is if it survives these filters, what's left is just this kind of shriveled up, dried out, dead thing, which is like ironic because it's like even with this doing this video, doing this YouTube channel, like this doesn't make any sense at all. I'm a grown ass man on YouTube vlogging about my feelings. I mean, first of all, I never thought I would be doing this. This is absurd. It's hilarious to me that I'm here with my 25 subscribers on YouTube talking about my vlogging about my emotions like a diary. But here I am, and it's like there's something in me that feels compelled to do this. Now, I don't know why. I can't explain it. I mean, I can explain it, but I can't explain it to that voice. That voice is like sitting there like, why are you doing this? Why are you spending your time on this? What is the point? How does this make money? How does this, what is the value in doing this? And that voice can't see the value. It doesn't get it. And so if I was to, allow this project, allow this idea to be put through these filters, it wouldn't survive. And if it did, it would be some kind of like, I'd be like trying to make money or whatever, which doesn't work. It's like that. That's the irony of it, is that I don't know. I don't, and the part of the goal is to let go of expectation. That voice wants to know. It wants to know what to expect, and it wants to know how it's going to make money. And the irony is that if the idea passes through these filters, what's left on the other side would never make money anyways. It would be so devoid of creativity and soul and interest that it wouldn't have any commercial value anyways. And so that's kind of the irony of the whole thing, is like it really just, it suffocates the spark of magic that could maybe make money, possibly, but it ruins any possibility of that in this filtering, distilling it until it's just some dried up whatever idea that only exists to make money, that's not interesting, you know. So well, okay, so yeah, I said that was a complicated one. So this is like, and like I could go on about this, but it's like there's that program, that voice, and you know, but I think it's connected to this very primal programming. You know, a billion years of biological evolution have produced this software, and you know, and I think it's very prevalent in men. You know, I think this is a very this is very particular to, you know, the masculine experience. I think not that women can't experience this, but I think this is a common theme. You know, so you know, but basically, it's like this voice has taken too much of a front row seat, and it's long been time to let it sit aside, and you know, so then in relation to that voice, that, you know, it's like the thread continues where I then struggle with questions around my self-worth. You know, what value do I have? What is my self-worth? What are my gifts in relation to that voice, through that lens, through that perspective? And this is, you know, again, this is where it's like it's no longer relevant, because I measure myself against that criteria. And it's like, oh, well, and it's like, in that, with that criteria, with that perspective, if you don't make a boatload of money, then what value do you have? You know, and there's been, like, I'm abundant. You know, it's not like it's not a story of a lack of abundance. I'm hugely abundant in a, you know, both financially, but also in ways that are not measured financial. You know, not measured with money. And there have been times in my life where I've made, you know, what I thought was a lot of money for me, and there's been times when I've been dead broke, and it's like it fluctuates. I go through these different periods, and so it's not a story of like money or lack of money or something. It's more about it's like that I've spent my whole life measuring myself against this criteria, but it's only one perspective. It's like, and so when I say, okay, well, like, what value do I have if I don't have $10 million? Then it's like, well, none. In that lens, like you're no good, you know? And so so it's like there's this dynamic that I've created this in myself, that I compare myself and I measure myself against these standards that just don't really have any bearing. It's like, I am not that person. I'm not I'm my own individual, and I you know, I should not be measuring myself against one standard, you know, one standardized test, you know, pass or fail. But but this is what I'm coming from. This is one of the themes that I'm exploring, that I want to let go, is these feelings of it's like this lack of self-worth in this context, feeling like I'm not good enough. I don't make enough money. I'm not that the things that I'm doing in the world don't matter. They don't make money, or like some of them don't make money. Like doing this video, like this is what the voice would be like. Well, why bother? What's the point? It's stupid. You have 25 subscribers. Nobody's listening anyways. So why bother? And it's not wrong. It's like it has a point. But if I listen to that voice, I'll do nothing. Every idea dies under that lens. So, right. So it's these are some of the themes that I've been exploring, and I think really a lot of this kind of ties back to the same thing, which is this. It's kind of like this unresolved sadness, this grief. It's basically emotion that I've been carrying my whole life that has not been able to move through me, and therefore I think it manifests itself in these. It's like this energy comes out in these negative thought patterns and the sort of wet blanket emotions. Like you can never have too much fun. Don't have too much fun, because like there's this like wet blanket of grief that you just can't really let go of. And so this is what I was exploring with the microdosing, the Iboga. And then synchronistically, this San Pedro ceremony came up, and so I continued with, that the intention with that ceremony was to continue exploring these themes. So we set out to do the ceremony. We hiked out to this we're on an island in the southern Gulf of Thailand, Kopangan, and it's beautiful. There's this national park in the middle of, like 70% of the island is covered by a national park, and we have this spot that we go to when we do these ceremonies, where we hike out, and it's in the middle of the island, and we hike out into the jungle, and it opens up into this valley, this like Garden of Eden. It's really beautiful. It's this incredible valley. Goes down, there's like it opens up into these fields, and there's these two creeks that converge. They're coming down from these other parts of the mountains, and they converge in this idyllic field. And so we hiked out, and we set up our camp and prepared a fire, and then at sunset, around 7 p.m., we drank the first round of medicine, and then a couple, maybe like 3 hours later or so, maybe 4 hours later, we drank another 2 more rounds. And the thing about San Pedro, so the one thing is, like, of all the plant medicines, I would say San Pedro is the one that I've done the most. Like, I have the most experience with that. I'm quite familiar with it. The guys that I was doing it with were all, we've done this a fair amount, and this one was different because the strain of the cactus that we had was actually cultivated from Terence McKenna. So I don't know when, back in the 80s maybe, or the 90s, Terence McKenna had made a clipping of this cactus strain and brought it to somebody else, and they've been growing it ever since. And so this is the strain that we were drinking, and it was incredible. It was really profound, really deep, and like just really high vibration. Like it was such a high quality cactus strain, that it was really exceptional, like beyond what I have experienced. And so we began the ceremony. We drank the medicine, and it takes a long time to set in. It takes a number of hours for the medicine to really kind of get going. And so during that whole time, we're sitting in silence and meditating and thinking about intentions. And I noticed that it's like, okay, so I start opening myself up to this stream of thoughts, just whatever's coming through. And I noticed that I would have, when I would have a negative thought, or think of a memory that was a little bit unpleasant, something that I didn't want, I would want to avoid it. It was like, oh, don't think of that. Like stay high vibration, stay positive, like stay high vibe. And so it would be like, a thought would come through and it's like, oh, don't think of that thing. And then like maybe, a few minutes later, that thought would come around again. And it was like, oh, like, why do I keep thinking about this thing? Stop. Like, don't think about that. Like, yeah, don't think about that idea or that memory. And that's what and this is, I think, my normal pattern. This is what I normally do, is avoid discomfort. Something negative, it makes me feel uncomfortable. It's make it stop, do something to make it stop. And this time, what I sort of flipped this switch. What I started doing differently was I would notice that I wanted to avoid it. And it was like, oh, I want to avoid that. That's what I need to look at. Why do I want to avoid that? What is it about it that's making me uncomfortable? And that my avoidance is a sign that that's the thing that I need to focus on. And so I started doing that. Anytime a thought would come through that I wanted to avoid, that I didn't prefer, it was like, oh, that's another one. That's another one. And so after a while, I was kind of immersed in this constellation of these unpleasant thoughts, negative thinking. Like, why do I feel hopeless about this thing? Why do I feel like the outcome won't work? Why am I thinking about this person that I'd have some kind of uncomfortable story with? And so I'm just kind of allowing myself to explore these things, to really dive in and really like excavate, like what are these about? Like, why did this uncomfortable story with this person manifest itself? What is that related to? What is the mindset, and what is the course of actions that led to that story being created? And basically like tracing these things back, and then exploring some old memories, and like really focusing on memories of intense emotional distress, the like points in my life where like it was like I was under a lot of pressure, there was a lot of fear or anxiety or loneliness, and like focusing on these moments where these moments of intense emotional pressure. And as like a source of some of these things, a source of some of these entities, these programs, these negative thought patterns, I think that a friend of mine was telling me this, gave me this idea that it's like it's out of these places that these entities are born, that it's in these memories, these moments of intense emotional distress, that it's like the energy is compressed, and then from that is like an entity is birthed. And if and it's, and the entity being, it could be an entity, but also, just more practically speaking, like these negative thought patterns, these limiting beliefs, these negative things that kind of get installed in us and then infiltrate our thinking. It's like it comes from these places. And if you can identify these memories, if you can trace these back and remember these moments, that's actually how you can let it go. And it's like, you don't really need more than that. It's simply just by remembering that shining light on the memory kind of evaporates the entity. So I was kind of immersed in this constellation of all of this negative stuff, like shadow stuff, unwanted memories and things. And I noticed, well, it was like, okay, I want to let this go. It's like now that all of this is kind of like, I've got this all bundled together. It's like, okay, there's a whole bunch of stuff here that is not serving me, and I want to let it go. And so, but and the funny thing is, I wasn't. It became clear to me that I needed to purge. That was the way to let it go. That whatever this stuff was, it's like I needed some kind of physical, biological way to let it out. And I didn't feel sick. I didn't feel purgy. I like the San Pedro medicine, for whatever reason, I find it really agreeable. It sits really well with me. And so I was feeling fine, but I knew that I needed to purge. And so finally, after, I got all this stuff together, and it was like, okay, I meditated on it for a while, and I was like, okay, let's go do this. Let's go get rid of this. Let it go. So I got up and walked out into the field at night. It's probably like 2 a.m. And there's this amazing, out in the field, there's this amazing tree. It's like maybe 15 feet tall, and it's not really even a tree. It's like, it's a thorn tree. It's kind of shaped, it's a little bit like a palm tree, but it's like, maybe the trunk is like that, and it's all green, and the thorns are like 2 to 3 inches, and it's so gnarly. But it's like these frayed leaves, and it looks amazing. There was a real spirit to the tree. It had a really strong presence, and it was like I could feel it. Even when we walked into the field earlier in the day, when we walked down in the valley, I remember seeing it. I remember walking past it and really taking note of it. It was like, it was like my subconscious was communicating with it, and it was like, wow, that's a really intense tree. But at the time, I didn't know. It was like I didn't know why it was like, it got my attention though. So I'm, like fully deep in the journey at this point. And I walk out in the field, and it's like everything's crazy. It's like I can barely walk. It's like, the entire world is like a hologram. And so I see this tree, and I just kind of instinctively walk out to the tree, and I get down, and I'm like, okay, let's purge. But I wasn't really feeling sick. And so it's like, okay, like how am I going to do this? And what I found was that by ruminating on these thoughts, on these memories, on these negative thought patterns, limiting beliefs, relationships, that the more I thought about it, they made me feel bad. It's like the thoughts themselves made me feel gross. And so I just really went into that vortex, and I was like, just really immersing myself, like really focusing and staying in these memories and these feelings, and it's something like I was bringing back the vibration that I felt, like the fear and the sadness and the loneliness, and bringing back that vibration. And it made me feel sick. And it's like that. And I think part of it is like that vibration is not compatible with the vibration of the cactus, the medicine. Like you are, you drink that medicine, and it's like you are in such a high vibration state. It's like I felt like my nervous system had been hooked up to 1,000,000 volts of electricity, like for hours. It's like all night long. It's like there's so much energy, just pure energy running through you, that I felt like I was going to explode. And I think it's such a clean, pure energy that there's no room for anything that's not harmonious with that. It's like that vibration is so strong and clear that anything like sadness and fear and anxiety and worry is going to just get blasted out. Like it cannot exist in that frequency. And so it was like I was focusing on these things and calling in this energy, like really putting myself in that place. And that was making me sick. So I managed to get myself to throw up. And it was like I had been fasting, for, I don't know, maybe 36 hours before, in preparation. And, so there wasn't really anything in me, but it was like really reaching down. It was like I was purging, and it was like really pulling some deep stuff out, which was great. And so I throw up, and then immediately it was like the purging opened up this portal, this emotional gateway, where suddenly it was this huge wave of emotion and grief. And I was sobbing and crying and throwing up, and there was like snot coming out of my nose, and like my body was convulsing, and it was like all of this energy that, it's like a lifetime of grief was waiting to burst through the dam. And as this was happening, it was like the thoughts, like what actually started happening was like my story, all of this stuff, all of this stuff with my intention and all of my, all of the my story, suddenly it was like, it was not even present. It was like out the window. And what it was being replaced with was the suffering of others. And it was like suddenly everybody in my family, my entire family tree, like my parents, my brother and sister, my cousin, uncles, dead grandparents, great grandparents, all of a sudden it was like each one of them was flashing through, and I was like tapping into their suffering, their emotional field. And it's like it's in my family, and something that I've inherited is like there's this systemic problem of like stuck emotion. It's like we're like our whole family is very stoic. It's like we contain the emotion, we don't let it out, we maintain composure, we keep a straight face, blank face, and we don't emote very much. And so there's a lot of stuck energy. I think there's lifetimes of this stuff building up, and in everybody's individual story, that just never got let out. And it's like, and I can see this in, like, not that everybody's consumed with sadness or something, but it's like I can see their pain and their suffering. And so it was like that is what was coming through, was the suffering of others in my family tree. And it was as if this was the message, was that it was like I was just a channel for this energy to move through. I was like a faucet, like a pipe with a faucet to be released, and I was just a medium to allow unresolved ancestral trauma to flow through me. And there was a quality to it, there was a feeling to it that was like that by allowing this trauma and this emotional energy to move through me, that I am healing the family tree, that I'm healing in both directions, the future and the past, that I am healing across time and space, across dimensions, that somehow allowing this vibration, this energy to move through me that has been stuck in, it's like this is, it's like energy. So it's like this trauma, this emotional stuff. It's like this is just energy that has been existing in my lineage, in my DNA for centuries. My ancestors carry it, and our children will carry it. And it's like, it's just energy that was never allowed to get released. It didn't have a chance to move through and release. And so this was the message, was like, it was like by doing this, by allowing my, it was like I was sobbing, but it wasn't even that I was like, it was the weirdest thing. I wasn't like attached to the story. I wasn't like, it's like I wasn't really sad. Like the whole time it was happening, I was thinking, I was like, wow, this is amazing. Like this feels so good. I can't, and like, wow, I'm finally crying. And like, this is incredible. And it was like, I'm throwing up, and it's like, let's do it again. And it was like getting like the purging became harder and harder. It was like more painful. And it was like, I was getting a lot of pleasure out of it in a weird way. But it was like, it was this message that was coming through was that somehow like this was my value, that I have value in the sense that my being is attuned to these things in such a way that like, it's like I've chosen a path in my life. Like my life's journey has led me to a place where my sensibilities and my awareness around this stuff can allow me to be a conduit, to be a channel for processing and releasing ancestral trauma. And that by doing this, it's even like a responsibility. It's not even that I have a choice or that I need permission to do it. That it's like that critical voice. I don't need permission from that. And that I'm actually obligated to do this, that I'm because I'm aware of it and I have the sensibility, and I'm working and practicing in this space, this, this sort of spiritual healing dimensions, that because I'm equipped to do this, that it's actually a responsibility to do it. And that regardless of what this voice says, that has value. This doesn't have to understand it. It won't understand it. It doesn't have financial value. It doesn't make sense. But that's okay. This critical voice, this entity, does not need to understand. It doesn't need to give permission, and that it has that this is a gift that has value beyond money. It's like you can't even measure it against money. It's like this is healing in across dimensions, across time and space, both forward into the future and backward into the past, healing the ancestral family tree. And I don't it's pretty hard to place a monetary value on that. It doesn't even exist in the ecosystem of resources and acquisition of finances. And that's what happened. And so I realized that I was accessing my body was going through this process, and I was just kind of watching it. I was like a spectator. I might as well have been sitting next to me, just kind of observing. But it was like my body was going through these purging processes and sobbing and convulsing and crying and, choking and throwing up. And it was like I was watching this energy move through me, and that the way to access it was by tuning in to other people's suffering. And suddenly my problems became laughable. Like whatever bullshit I went into the ceremony with, that I've been dealing with for years. It was like these stories. Oh no, negative thinking. Like negative, like limiting beliefs. And it was like, and it's like suddenly in that moment, it was like my story was just kind of pathetic. And it's not, now it's not to say, like, as I'm integrating and thinking about this, it's not to say that it is pathetic. It's not to say that I don't suffer, or that my own suffering isn't important. It's not like some selfless thing, but it's just that but I think what it was showing me was that my suffering and my negative thinking and my self-criticism and my self-worth or whatever were all inherited. They're all a result of inheriting these programs, this trauma, this emotional energy. So I am just yet another surfer on this family tree. Like I inherited this DNA, which comes with it all of this unprocessed trauma, and now I'm carrying it too. And so it doesn't mean that it doesn't diminish my own experience, but it's just that my experience is a result of this. And I was tempted to say like a victim of this, a victim of inheriting this trauma, this energy, but I don't think victim is the right word. I think victim isn't the right word because it's not. I don't know. It's one, that's just like disempowering. It's not about victimhood. It's not about playing a victim, but it's like, I think maybe a better word is inheritor, receiver. Like I mean, almost like it's a gift. It's like, of course, it's like kind of unwanted, but it's like, I think it's helpful to look at it like I received the gift of this grief. And I think really the gift is that it's allowing me to see it. And by seeing it and sort of welcoming it, and like, I've spent my whole life avoiding it and running away, and it's like, now that I've, over the last, year or two, whatever, I've sort of turned around and faced it, and it's like, oh, now actually that's the gift, is like, now that it got so loud that I couldn't run away. It got so loud that I had to turn around and face it, and by facing it, it's allowing me to transmute it, and that's the gift. And so that's led me to that moment, purging under that tree, was that everything had led to that moment where now the gift was that I was able to receive this grief and this suffering and this sadness that from the collective that my family tree has experienced, lived and died their entire lives in this, and continue to experience it. It's like, of course, these stories continue to unfold, and that I was a channel for this vibrational energy to move through, and somehow in doing that, in that emotion, that somehow that was transmuting it and letting it go. That was the message. And then, so like on the idea of letting it go, it was also like, I don't think that it's not a one and done thing. It's not just like, oh, okay, glad that's over, now I can move on. It's like, the message that I got, the feeling that I have about it is that this is just the beginning, that this is an ongoing process, that it's not something that you do and then you move on and like let it go and like that, now I can move on with my life. To a certain extent, yeah, but it's also like, there's a feeling that it's like, oh, this is actually kind of like an endless supply. There's an endless supply of grief and suffering and unprocessed trauma, that it's just energy. It's just energy that needs to move through. And so, and that this is the way to access it, that the way to access it is by tuning into other people's suffering, like really, really getting immersed in the grief of their experience. That's at least in that moment, that was how I was accessing it. I haven't done it, it's been a week. I haven't done it since as like a exercise or a practice. Like, I think at some point I want to try to work with this, as a practice, and so the other thing, the way that this kind of finished was that the other message was that my voice was transmuting this energy too. It was like in a much less dramatic way, let's say, or that it's like So I've always, my whole life, I've always sensed the power of my voice. And in recent years, like in the last, maybe 5 years, 10 years or so, it's been growing and growing and building that there's a deep connection to my voice, and that I can sense that there is a profound power in my voice, in everybody's voice. But it's like this is the source of vibration. It's like energy moves through me, and then my voice is the vibration mechanism that transmutes it and emanates it out into the world. And I've had one plant medicine experience where the experience was, it was like I had this feeling, it was a vision, it was a knowing that all of reality was emanating from my voice. Everything that existed was coming from my throat. And that's actually when I started singing. That's when after that experience, I was like, okay, quit fucking around. That was crazy. There's, I don't know what this is, but it was a knowing that everything that exists, time itself, it like comes from my voice. And so that's when I dropped what I was doing and went and started working with a vocal coach, singing coach, doing Eastern classical ragas. And then I met a Mongolian guy, a Mongolian throat singer, and I went down that path. That's more I resonate more with that Mongolian sort of throat singing, Om chanting. But that was the message. It was like my body is this medium to channel unresolved ancestral trauma, thereby transmuting it and releasing it, healing the trauma somehow by throwing up and crying. And then that my voice is connected to this, that it's like this, that my voice isn't really even mine, that what's coming through is ancestral. And it makes sense to me in this way that like I inherit these programs in my DNA. I am the recipient of this ancestral software, this energy, this emotional energy, and it moves through me, and then I'm using my voice. I don't know, that energy moves through me and then is producing these sounds. And it's like, yes, I have my mind, I have my ego, I have my thoughts, but it's like the thoughts are just coming from somewhere else anyways. It's like I'm a recipient of the thoughts too. So my voice is just a mechanism for transmuting this energy that's coming from somewhere else. It's coming from a billion years of biological evolution and unresolved ancestral trauma, and then it's being expressed in these ideas that are like coming from the ether. So what to do with that? That it was like that was in that moment. It was like, okay, that was the message. That's what it was telling me. It was like, okay, whoa. And it's like with the voice thing, it's like it's something that I've been hovering around. It's like I've been vaguely aware of this for a long time, but I couldn't quite formulate it. I couldn't quite put my finger on it. It didn't quite clarify and crystallize until in that moment it was like, oh, this, like, it laid it out. This is how it works. Like, this is what it's doing. And and so walking away from this, I don't feel like I really have answers, like these questions and these intentions and things. I don't have an actionable answer to these questions, but it has revealed a lot of information. There was a lot of data, and it revealed a lot of things. A lot of them were unexpected, and it's like, okay, now with this new information, now what do I do? Or, or it's not even what, it's like, okay, now with this new information, do with that as you please. And so that's kind of where I'm at now, is like just kind of thinking about, what do I do with that? And I think I don't really know. But it seems fairly clear that at least one of the things to do with that is to use my voice. What I'm doing now. I don't know why. I don't know where it's going. I don't know how it makes money, but it was like the message was generally like, use your voice. And it's like, it like, there's a feeling that like by putting this to use and coming from that place, coming from that context, that foundation of like, this is, tapping into that as the source of inspiration is, in doing that like, that will reveal the path. Like, the next steps will reveal themselves. But I need to, through doing that. So I've just been kind of integrating the last few days, all of this, all this information. I do feel like something has been let go. There is a sense of relief. It's not major, it's not huge, but it's subtle, but it feels profound in its subtlety. It's like, it's big, but it's like, I think it's taking time. Like, it's so big that it needs to take a long time to kind of change. It's not just like, it's not like walking away from the ceremony. I wasn't like, oh my God, I feel like $1 million and like, wow, I'm so glad I let that go. It's like, I actually felt more or less the same, a little bit lighter, definitely like feeling a little bit, feeling, more high vibe, but there is like a sense that a massive shift in the spiritual dimension took place. I think one of the things that I've been really trying to pay attention to is just not, I can see a lot of these patterns these hooks trying to get back in, like these, these negative thought patterns or behaviors and just like behavioral patterns that I'm a little bit more aware of, a little bit more cognizant of, like, being a little bit more mindful not to allow them to kind of take root again. So just trying to keep it going. And yeah, so I think I'll leave it at that. And so again, it was like, I was a little bit hesitant to share this because I don't want to diminish it. I don't want to dilute it. I don't want to, it was a profound, very personal teaching lesson that I received. And I'm trying not to diminish that. But at the same time, I feel like that lesson would say to share this, to use my voice, to speak this, to share this, to put it out. And so you know, I guess the goal is to just try to tap into, like allow it to come from that place of, you know, genuine authenticity. So I think I think this is kind of the end of the Iboga journey for now. I'm not feeling like I need to continue using it at the moment. I think that's in a good place. And I think that this ceremony, the San Pedro, was really, this was the unexpected thing. That it was like I had no idea this was coming, and it was a spontaneous invite. But this was kind of the big puzzle piece. It was like I'd finished the Iboga, and I was feeling a little bit disappointed. Like a little confused, because I was like, I feel like there's unfinished business. I feel like I went halfway, but it didn't feel resolved. And then I feel like the San Pedro was kind of that missing piece that came in and was like, okay, like now that we've done the prep work, the San Pedro was like, okay, now we're gonna come knock it out of the park. So yeah, I'll leave it at that, and I guess we'll see where this thing with the voice goes. I have some ideas, but yeah, it's not really clear what to do other than to do it, to just keep using my voice, whether, you know, in whatever way I see fit. So thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.